Good evening. Welcome back to the Bhoycie Bus. It's been a wee while since we've done a show, a couple of weeks now, I think, but obviously not much happening in the old Celtic sphere, if we're totally honest. I think we can all acknowledge that now. I think you'll need to look at the title. The fans keep spending whilst the board do not. Obviously, we were all enthused by the likes of Tierney and Negron, so it's not like everything's doom and gloom. But when you've lost likes of Kyogo and Nicholas Kuhn in the space of 5 months, Jota's came in, of course, but is out till Christmas, if not the new year, then those sort of omissions from the squad, of course, are going to be getting called out, particularly when this summer is a summer of rush. And what I mean by that, it's a summer of rush because we've got the Champions League playoffs. And of all the managers who know what happens if you don't prepare for those, it's the man who's back in situ now. Of course, his last time around, he failed to qualify through the playoffs for the first time. Could it be that lightning strikes twice and we have a very unhappy Brendan if we went to qualify? Hopefully not. Hopefully there is more. What's that saying? I'm always looking for sayings when I do this. There's more fires in the sand. Something like that. Sand in the fire. Oh, fuck knows. I don't know what I was going to say. But hopefully there's more targets that they're just doing their due diligence on. They're considering exploring. They're exploring the options of. They are taking a backseat interest in. We've got all the phrases, Jonathan, Celtic seem to have when it looks at a player. Oh, the Celtic are set to buy. I love reading those ones. Anyway, we'll get into all that. But of course, I've got the, in fact, it's just froze on me. It's the joys of legally funded Fire Stick TV, kids. But yeah, it's just froze on me there, so I might have to play about with it. But I've got it on. So it's a watch along of sorts as well we can do tonight. And brilliant to have as many of you on the bus as possible. We could join the chat, we could talk about the game, we could talk about our fears for the window, or maybe our Zen attitude towards how the window is going. Jonathan, how the hell are you?
Well, Russell, it's good to be back on the bus after a couple of weeks away. I have been sunning myself, hitting the heights of the Arrochar Alps today. Hopefully, Celtic will soon be hitting the heights when it comes to the transfer window. I may have overdone it slightly and came back a tad burnt. Meanwhile, looking at Celtic Park, the only people that seem to be getting a hole burned in their wallets is the supporters. When does it end? We want to know the answers, and it's interesting that at the moment we are in the venue of our greatest triumph as a club. Will that be the scene where we finally start seeing some movement in this window and we can finally begin to look forward to the season ahead and indeed those qualifiers? A lot of questions need answered. It's over to the Celtic board to deliver.
Yes, mate, yes. Do you know what's mad? After putting you on the spot last week to do it, or 2 weeks ago to do it, I totally forgot about it this week. I was just like, all right, how are you? See,
I guess I
you
I could
jumped in
piece
with the
that one
voice
together
there.
as well.
I was like, what the fuck? I'd forgotten all about it. Anyway, brilliant work as always. I can't wait till you get them fine-tuned as the dramas of the season unfold and you find ways to play it into card matches and all that sort of shit. Anyway, Damien Gallagher, not Dermot Gallagher, that was the referee. Damien Gallagher is in. He's given us a couple of wee tidbits from the game so far. He says he does miss 2 good chances up to now. He'll get plenty of grief for that. I think you're right, Damien. I think he's one of these guys who he could cross the road, using his right foot first, and he'd get criticism for it, to be honest with you. Was the lollipop man in position properly, all that sort of shit. When it comes to Adam Ida, I don't like laughing at your own part, Bhoycie. But you're absolutely right to say, if he's in the right position, then that's always a good sign. You're also letting us know that KT's given the ball away 5 times. Negron, though, has been impressive. Yeah, I was kind of dotting about the flat, to be honest with you, with the game on in the background. I'm not one to obsess over pre-season friendlies and get too sort of into them, if I'm honest with you. But his name was appearing quite a lot, which was encouraging, of course, to see it. I'm just trying to get a wee stream as well, so I'm a wee bit distracted. But yeah, Negron, we're expecting, by the way, to see big things for this guy. I mean, this guy's came in. I mean, we're told, as long as they're good enough, it doesn't matter about the fee. Cool. I'm all for that. Negan's been brought in, as far as I'm concerned, as a player to be who was proactively replacing Nicholas Kuhn. I expect it to be a quality player who comes in to replace 36 goal contributions last season. End of story. So I'm not trying to heap pressure on him in any way, shape, or form. It's not his fault. But I'm expecting signings like that to be Swedish internationals to come in and be of quality. Absolutely damn right. And that's what I'm looking forward to hear. As for KT, he's just playing it cool right now. Now, remember as well, before we get too stuck in, do all that good stuff. Give us a like, give us a share, buy some hair. Remember, hit the bell. You never miss a bus. If you want to be a member, it's $1.99 a month. As I say, I don't want to promise you that we're going to be on 2-3 times a week. The plan will be, and I make plans out, the plan will be me and Jonathan do a show Monday, Tuesday, or a Wednesday. One of the three. Me and Mark will do a Thursday, and I'll do one on my own, whether it be the weekend or through the week. That'll be the sort of my bare minimum. I'm looking to do about 3 shows a week. And I'll maybe do the odd watch along for the home games. Do you know what I mean? Because the away games always tend to be televised. But I won't be doing post-match every single game and stuff like that. I will do post-match reaction maybe, but it won't be right after the game, as that was just tying me down a wee bit much. But on a positive note, there'll be plenty still good chat on the bus. And as you know, we are somewhere where it can be home of unfiltered, as you know, uncensored, Piers Morgan face, something like that. But we tell it like it is in the bus, or at least how we think it is. And I think the refreshing honesty has been what's kept us on there. And we do have a wee bit of patter. And I think, to be fair as well, with the only podcast you'll watch, we're disagreeing between the contributors, disagreeing with viewers' points of view, and having good back and forth is actually allowed. So, yeah, we're not wanting too much of a loving. Speaking of loving, Jonathan. Oh, there was a funny one I seen the other day. Oh, there was someone who used to be on this one. He's got, and the wee fella one. This is Axel. It was 2 peas on a pod, Jonathan. I tell you that.
Very good.
Oh, it was funny, man. I think I watched about 3.5 minutes, but anyway, I just came up with suggested videos. I thought, oh wow, and my phone's still not went. Funny that. But I'm sure you'll be seeing a lot of ex-bus members popping up on that pod, and of course you've got the boys in the bus with the good man Phil, who'll be doing a lot of good work as well. Damien's just said there, usual pish quality from Celtic TV. I'm hoping it's not just my.
Oh, certainly you don't want that from people that are paying.
You are?
So you wouldn't want that from people that are paying good money.
Well, that's true as well. But
Celtic TV,
From a selfish point of view, I don't want it to be my fire stick that all the streams are dodgy on either, to be honest. And yes, Damien, you're absolutely right. Irons in the fire is the phrase I was looking for. There's a few in. Graham Terrell's joined. Ian McIntosh has joined as well. Great to see you. Jonathan, you touched on it in the opening gambit, as it's called. Fingers getting burnt, wallets getting burnt, holes in the fans' wallets, getting burnt. I mean, definitely, mate, right now. It feels to me like I'm looking at Celtic. I get the fact, right? You've got a deal with Adidas, you're an elite deal with Adidas, whatever that's meant to mean. Does it mean more money? Not that I've heard. I'm pretty sure Celtic would have promoted that if it was. But we're now in an elite band with Adidas where we're going to be getting, bespoke training gear and kits and things. But boy, don't we know it already. Celtic, I think there was a brilliant tweet I read today that said the Celtic have dropped more gear than who was it? He said anyway, a famous drug dealer for the cartel back in the day, which made me laugh a lot. But yeah, I mean, what annoys me with it is if this was being done on a timeline where I'm also seeing Celtic proactive in the transfer market, looking like they are treating the Champions League with the respect it deserves, i.e. the upcoming playoffs, then do you know what? No one cares. Everyone's like, yeah, sell your merchandise, promote it to fuck, no one cares. But see, when it's only merch posts that you're seeing, and it feels like Celtic have went radio silent. It feels like Celtic have brought in a hell of a lot of money, and they're always expecting the fans, and let's not call it summer by summer. They expect the supporters, Jonathan, season by season. And when I say season, I don't mean football season. I mean the 4 seasons of the year. They have a different reason for Celtic fans, particularly parents, I feel for, having to dig deep in their pockets and use big chunks of what their expendable income is on their wage on the latest Celtic gear. Do I take the point that, of course, if you don't like it, don't buy it? That doesn't mean kids don't press you and you keep up with the Joneses and all these things as well. It's ignorant to think that doesn't go on. And it just feels a wee bit brass-necked, if I'm honest with you, mate. At times seeing constant adverts, get your money out, when Celtic fans have been saying that to the board for a long time, yet, ironically, with this Adidas deal, we won't see any of that spent on the first team. I'll tell you the reason why, because the recruitment that the recruitment fees we pay out in terms of player trading this season, we'll make profit on this year alone. So therefore, your merch, your sponsorship deals, they're just getting banked, mate. Banked. But one. And the grandest amount of them all is that Champions League bounty. Will that be banked? That's the key one. And I worry that rather than them speculating to accumulate that, they'll basically get their ducks in order that if they don't get the holy grail of the Champions League money, they will ride it out with the profit they make in players trading, the incredible amount of merch that they continue to promote in season ticket money and things like this. It's sad how unambitious that theory sounds. And from a personal point of view, it's extremely frustrating that I can't help but feel that is what their attitude is. I'm not saying it's gospel, but my take on it is I feel like that's how their mindset will be. What's your thoughts?
It's an interesting one because I'm kind of looking at it as almost like scales going on. They are not Liam scales, just actual metaphorical scales. And that at the minute it's weighted far more towards the club trying to get money out of the supporters for many different things, rather than being more of a balancing act where the supporters are also feeling they're getting a buy-in from the club in terms of what's going on in the football side of things. They need to address a few different areas of the pitch, and they're running out of time to do that, because ideally you want players in before your pre-season starts, particularly when you do have a Champions League qualifier to negotiate. And we're now in a situation where even if we get these players in, we're running out of time, until this qualifier actually turns up. It's only probably about another month away, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if we end up back in a similar situation where the board end up waiting to find out exactly what the position's going to be with Champions League football before they then decide whether or not to pull the trigger on more signings. And that should not be the case, absolutely not. And as I say, particularly when they are putting out new Adidas merchandise. You've had, was it the America collection a couple of weeks ago? You've had some festival collection only the other week. There's been the Sambas,
yeah.
And even this morning I went into my emails and they're still chasing people to buy a ticket for the Newcastle friendly on Saturday, because that's also, and that's another 25 quid. It's not included on the season ticket book, by the way, either. So season ticket holders still have to fork out for that if they're wanting to attend that game. And again, that's going to bring in a lot of money, whether people want to go to that or not, because again, there's opportunities there to bring your family along and actually get seats next to each other, which you don't get very often throughout the actual domestic season with Celtic anymore. Tickets are scarce, they're hard to come by. But a game like that, you could potentially pick up a group of tickets all next to each other for. And when I had a wee look on the map, it looks as if they're very close to selling that out now as well, in terms of the actual tickets that were available for that game. So they're banking an awful lot of credit in the bank. And I just wonder if they don't be proactive in terms of bringing in a couple of more players. And as I say, leveling out those scales a little bit in terms of buying and, for the supporters as to what they're actually buying into, then they could have a serious problem, not just at management level with Brendan, who I think you're right when you touched upon it at the start there, that if they were to fail to qualify, you'll have an unhappy Brendan for his final season. But you're also going to have a very unhappy fan base, particularly the ones that have spent and shelled out all this money on different merchandise, season tickets, going to the friendly matches, and then they're looking at it and feeling, well, I've spent all this, and what am I actually getting in return? And I feel, Russell, that the board are almost taking the fans for granted at this point, and they feel that they do it every year. And there needs to be some form, surely, of comeuppance somewhere along the way, because there's only so many times you can go to the well and gamble on something like this if you're not going to actually, make signs before these big games. Eventually, one of these things is going to come back and bite you on the arse. And I just wonder, because we've seen this story play out so many times over the past 10, 15 years, particularly when qualifiers have been involved, by the way, how many more will the Celtic fans, do you think, be willing to accept, particularly when the board are putting out so many different ways of getting revenue in?
Well, my biggest worry with that is that what Celtic have done in their attitude towards Europe and their attitude towards treating, if there's been qualifiers involved to those, and the Champions League in general, to be honest with you, I think has went on actually so long that what you don't realise is, John, there's more than one generation now of Celtic fan who only knows domestic bliss, loves it, and thinks Europe's a myth. That Celtic can't compete at that level. So the longer it goes, actually the safer this mad mindset becomes, because, my favourite term, conditioning is now in place, where people, like supporters, it's not their fault, of younger generations, are conditioned to think all Celtic can do is hit this domestic ceiling, and Europe, wow, we made last 24. That's fucking unbelievable for Celtic sort of vibe. And that's the way I see it right now, that the position actually might be getting a wee bit more cemented because of how long it's went on, as opposed to more vulnerable, which I know is the question that you're asking me. I love this for HTC King, who comes in. A lack of ambition will cost us in the qualifier. Complacency could cost us domestically. I think that's fair for HTC to say that. I do also take the other point of view, and this is Ian McIntosh coming in again, and he's of the more relaxed sort of modes, where he's maybe looking at bigger picture of a camera frame of mind, and that's fine, by the way. No criticism of that whatsoever. I wish I could share it sometimes, Ian. He's happy with the business so far. KT's came in, Osman's came in, Nigrin's came in, Inamura, Yamada for around 4 million. I think a few big transfers will come with the pyramid effect. The bigger ones come later. But see, there's flaws in that, though, for me, Ian. Osmond hasn't played a professional game at first team level, as I'm led to believe. I think Premier League 2 is his highest level.
Yeah. Goal every game, I think, roughly his ratio was in that league as well.
KT and Nigrin, absolute first teamers, but we did lose first teamers in Nicholas Kuhn, Kyogo, and Greg Taylor. That's 3 first team starters have came out, so 2 first team starters have came in. And we're always wanting to strengthen, remember, not just replace. Each summer, I've said this every summer, by the way, since I've been doing the bus. Every summer you should be stronger than you were the summer before. Not just getting in replacements you hope will do as well as the ones you've sold on for a tidy profit. As for Inamura and Yamada, I know the left back Inamura looks like he's might be impressed in his opening game, but Brendan's words initially didn't exactly fill you with confidence. He's a player. He's looking or counting his chickens.
He's been linked up in a left back, hasn't he?
Yeah, the Nazio, is it?
Nazinho or something.
Nazinho, I love that name, and that works for me, definitely. Yeah,
I may have made that up. I think it's Nazinho.
No, Nazinho sounds good. We'll go with Nazinho. Yamada, again, we've got to be real with these guys are playing at a level I don't think is as good as maybe what Hatate, Maeda, and Kyogo led us to believe. Since those 3, what have we seen from players coming in from the Asian market? Ideguchi, Iwata. Iwata could do well in League One at Birmingham. He might do well again in the Championship. It wasn't good enough for Celtic, though. And he had opportunities. And there was times where there was injuries in the squad, and he was never one that was going to be first pick to come in and cover either, or felt like the manager ever had that much faith, either of them. Okay, who was the Kobayashi? We then look at the South Korean market, which is obviously in that same sort of area. We've had Kwon, Yang. Oh, fuck. We've had more hits, misses than hits now from the Asian market. So counting on Inamura and Yamada coming in, or Yamada, or Yarmada, as Graham Tyrrell's put in the chat. I don't know. I mean, I really don't know with those. Katie and Negrin would have been great signings to add to what we had, in my opinion. They've given, and as much as they hopefully will be good signings, but we know Katie will. They're coming in to replace players that have departed, that have made big contributions for Celtic, either over 5 years or massive contributions in 1 year, between Taylor and Nicholas Kuhn, respectively. So, but it's two sides of it, and I'm glad that Ian does seem relaxed about it, and he's talking about the sort of more optimistic perspective. And I just wish I could share it, Jonathan. And maybe it's because one of the things with Celtic is when they are quieter, because you've seen the movie so many times, you don't have that faith they'll have their shit together and will be just quietly going about business. You just don't get that impression. You've seen it too often. You know their traits. You know how they act. You know how they've treated previous qualifying campaigns. And with that in mind, that's probably leading to my dread rather than just the actual facts in isolation themselves, because there is still time, of course.
Yeah, definitely there's still time, and I'm sure there'll definitely be work going on in the background at Brendan Rodgers' level. I'm sure he's suggesting names and has put together a short list of players that he's ideally wanting in. It's up to the board whether they can deliver on them, and there does have to be an element of realism. I do take that point as well, that sometimes your top targets, they may not be available for whatever reason at the start of the window, and it might not even always be Celtic's fault. It could be a case that somebody's been transfer listed and are wanting to assess options, or we're trying to work out a valuation, or anything like that. That could be completely fair, and out with the club's control. It's just when you're looking at the history of Celtic in the summer transfer windows, particularly, as I said, when they've got these qualifiers coming up, they don't seem to be as proactive as I would like them to be. And I think, looking at who's came in, with reference to Tierney, I think probably the club aren't going to get as much credit for Tierney, perhaps, for this window, because it's been known for so long that he was coming in anyway. Most people wanted him in January. And again, I'm not saying that's the club's fault. We couldn't get him in January. But the fact he's there is obviously brilliant. But it's not one that you almost kind of forget it's even a summer signing, if that makes sense, because we've all known about it since January, February time that was a done deal. They definitely need to be looking at it though, and having a serious look at making sure they have the right players in the right positions, and the players that Brendan wants. I mean, interestingly, I've seen again Edouard was linked today as well, which I'm not sure if that's just lazy journalism or not. But we've already went in this window and brought one ex-Celtic player back to the club who's worked previously with Brendan. I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if Edouard would be somebody that Rodgers might fancy working with again. As a player that he knows he can turn to, tried and trusted. I'd probably argue Rodgers got more out of Edouard than he has done out of Kyogo when he was here this time around under Brendan. And you'd probably perhaps find that Edouard might be more willing to come back to Celtic because of the fact Rodgers is in situ, and they had a lot of good times together the first time around, and his career kind of nosedived a little bit too. So there probably is a few pieces of that puzzle that definitely fit to bring him back in. I just wonder how that one would be received, Russell. Is that a question of Celtic doing what we are often criticised for as lazy scouting, or is that a move that if the pieces are all there of that puzzle, we should be looking to pursue?
I think what it would tell me is instantly when it's players like Edouard mentioned, ex-Celtic players like Jota brought in, they dwarf whatever it is that's been identified. That's what it sounds like to me. Bringing players back is always a risky thing. I was always notoriously regarded as going back is a risky thing, and yet it seems always to be our best option for any area if there's a chance to bring someone back, Even
managers, look at it, you've brought two managers back in the last 5-10 years twice.
Totally. But which is a massive point, by the way. And Ange Postecoglou, I think, would be in the shortlist if Rodgers were to leave tomorrow.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
So, I look at it like this. When it comes to someone like Edward, you've got to remove all the bullshit. And you've got to go, does he improve the squad? Yes or no? What boxes does he tick? What age is he? What profiling? What age is he at? What's his availability? Profile, obviously, what he can do with the, on the park as well, which is kind of important. Factor in what the manager's preference would be, and all these things should be taken care of. The sentiment stuff's a fan's responsibility to have, not at the clubs. I think the club need to remove all that stuff from it. If he's the best option to get in, and we're desperate for a centre forward, then by all means you go for it. From the fans' perspective, in terms of how he would be. How he'd be viewed, how he'd be welcomed, I think they would go nuts for it, mate, to be perfectly honest with you. I think there's a few people right now that will be, of course, when still with the lockdown season, well, still like at the forefront of their mind. But I think between that, the Stone Roses song and all that, the promo video when he rejoins and stuff, if you were to, and then I'd go on his debut, something like that, and I think he would probably change, and he's probably quite likely to. But again, the thing is that I think the stumbling block for me with the move, I think Edward would be open to joining a Brendan Rodgers Celtic. I'm not convinced Odsonne Edouard wants desperately to come back to Scotland to the unknown and to someone else. I think he's done that. I think he liked it when Brendan was there. He felt he evolved. He obviously feels like he gets a tune out of, or the manager gets a tune out of him, and he plays his best stuff. I think he comes to a bit. If you're looking at the manager with just 1 year left in his deal, Odsonne would have every right to be saying, "Well, if you want me to sign a 4 or 5 years, 5-year deals now, Celtic only seem to offer. So you want me to do that? Well, how about you sort your future out before I commit? Because with you just having 1 year, that doesn't fill me with confidence." I think that would be a massive part in Edward's thinking, whether the manager's there or not. I'm sure you think the same.
Yeah, and it's a big piece potentially of the puzzle this year, I think, and a lot of players the Celtic approach will have a similar question to put to Brendan and indeed the board on that part, because make no mistake about it, having somebody like Brendan Rodgers there is a big selling point for Celtic. Particularly with his track record of developing young players, he's got a list of names that he's taken both in his first and second spell at Celtic and improved. And so many of them have ended up making big impacts, south of the border. And that's, even if you're looking for a player that's got no affiliation with Celtic and is potentially looking at us as that stepping stone to getting into the English Premiership, then they're going to look for somebody like a Brendan Rodgers as a manager there and want them to be committed and know that they're going to be there for a few years to develop them so that they've got the best possible chance of getting to that level. The problem you've probably got there is I don't think Brendan will be here next summer, regardless of what happens in this window. I think Rodgers has made his promise at the start of his tenure this time around that he's doing the 3 years. He was always...
Jonathan, my earpiece is going. I'll do my Chris Kamara. Penalty Celtic.
It's been a goal, but to who?
Penalty Celtic.
Penalty Celtic. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
That's a moment now. I don't actually know who'll be taking the
Nice big Johnny Kenny. Tell you what, see when they do pre-season friendlies and there's only a few first teamers playing, I wish they'd put the names in the back of the shirt. Fuck me, man.
Oh, I mean, that could be anyone for relying on your eyesight.
Oh, thank you.
That could be fucking anybody.
I would get my eyes tested fucking back in like 2016.
That could be fucking Johnny Hayes just coming out of retirement, just doing one fucking... That could be fucking anyone if it's you fucking saying that.
Right, penalty, Rio Tati. Fuck knows how that went in. Celtic have scored. It was a soft penalty. I don't know how the keeper looks like he got two hands to it and it's somehow went in. Eye test. I remember fucking. Because obviously I don't like getting beat, Jonathan. You know me. I'm quite competitive sometimes, and I was like,
Sometimes.
I was like proper like fucking like reading the screen. Oh, jeez, so he's like the keeper got two hands to it. It went off the ground, bounced off the ground, then off his side, I think, and somehow went in. Anyway, and like I'm reading off the board like the letters, and then like I'm obviously trying to focus like fucking. I'm like 7. He's like letters, remember, Russell? I'm like fuck. I'm miles off it, man, but. He started taking the piss at the end, though. This is the truth. And he started asking questions I think were on the clipboard. And like the last question he asked, he was like, "Oh, have you ever been in a situation where like you've seen something and it's maybe not there or anything like that?" I'm like, "What?" That's kind of lead forward or deadpan. I was like, "Depends what kind of party I've been at, mate." He's like, is it cheeky bastard?
No more questions.
Yeah, but Celtic 1-0 up thanks to a Rio Tati penalty that somehow found its way past the goalkeeper just as my stream has stopped again. Yeah, Eduard, we'll wait and see. But yeah, in terms of the manager, I'm glad you led us on to that because he has been referencing Kyogo and stuff like that as well, Jonathan, since the weekend. I don't know if you noticed that, not being replaced. And these are things he's got every right to say. I think sometimes Rodgers is almost in this situation now where everything he says, they go, "Oh, see, wordsmith again," and what's the meaning behind that? And he, everything he says is an innuendo or do you know what I mean? Like some sort of undertone to it. Whilst true, he does not need to put an undertone on our top scorer for the last couple of seasons and an absolute icon in the eyes of the Celtic fans has been sold, not replaced, while a title race is still on. Well, Champions League football, remember that lack of respect towards the Champions League comment I keep making, is still alive. A knockout tie to go, if not still, in fact, I still think we had a league stage game to go.
We would have had at least one, yeah, we'd had Villa, possibly 2. Yeah, I think it was 2. Right.
So, with that all going on, he's still not been replaced, and it's now July. And it's now the next season's Champions League first fixtures coming up. You don't need to have undertones to that message, Jonathan. You don't need to be making sort of underhand, sort of messages to the board and interviews and that. Just call that like it is, and remind people how fucking ridiculous that is. But see, first of all, it's just not acting like a big club. Secondly, to me the Kyogo thing, I was all for selling him for the maximum price. We could get, I think, 10 million for a guy who just turned 30 and had certainly had his worst 18 months at Celtic by that point, compared to the 2 years prior. I felt was the optimum value we were ever going to get for Kyogo. So it was either going to be we ride out his lack of goals and trust that the old goal scoring form will come back and we'll never sell him on for money, or we sell him. But I'm only all for that if that means we've got a plan to invest said money in Kyogo, the next Kyogo. Let's just ride it out without him.
Yeah, it got to places where it was just ridiculous,
But it's still ongoing, and this is the point I'm trying to make, mate. It's still ongoing now. So Rodgers isn't trying to do his Terminado sort of comment or have a million wingers comment. This is cold, hard facts that if they're damning on the board, so be it. But that's their fault, not Rodgers for just stating the fucking obvious. We're Glasgow Celtic, the biggest team in the country. We won the league with half the strike force we started it with for the second half of the season, and we're going to Champions League qualifiers with them still not replaced. No problem to me for that being flagged.
No, absolutely not. And he's absolutely right to be flagging those things. And he'll know himself it's again the if that my hunch is correct, and I think it's the hunch of most people that he won't sign a new contract, then he has got a little bit of liberty there to say exactly what he thinks, because ultimately, if he knows it's game over for him in 12 months' time, then he can quite happily have a couple of flyer digs at the board. He wouldn't do anything to upend the boat too much and cause disharmony creeping into the actual first team. But he has got that bit of wriggle room there where I think most fans are astute enough now to have put the pieces together and worked out that I think he was going to be staying. His new contract would have been signed by now. I think the fact he hasn't tells its own story. And I think there's potentially a board level a little bit of relief that he hasn't signed that new contract from certain members that perhaps are probably finding him a bit of a headache when it comes to dealing with in terms of transfers, which is nonsensical. But they would far rather, I think, have a happy clapper in there that will match the beat of their drum rather than something like a Brendan Rodgers who will call them out when they aren't doing a good job on certain things like recruitment and will make those statements publicly so the supporters are fully aware of what's going on. Not as if the supporters aren't aware, but it's good to get that bit of reassurance that the manager is also demonstrating that he knows exactly what the supporters are feeling and thinking as well at times. I do wonder, Russell, if the board are looking at this and thinking, Brendan leaves in 12 months' time. Why should we back him with too many of his own players when he's not going to be the one there to see them through with development? Why don't we just leave him with what he has? We'll maybe give him one or two to beef up the squad, and then it'll be a clean slate for whoever comes in, rather than somebody new coming in next summer. And you, what's that?
It'll be our slate for whoever comes in, is what they'll
Oh,
be
yeah. Well, yeah, clean slate that's pretty much signed off by Peter Lawwell from day one.
Yeah.
But you know, it just gives you that opportunity there that for the board to potentially be like, well, there's no point backing him because he's not here in 12 months' time. We'll give him the bare essentials to do the job domestically. He'll then bugger off. We don't actually want to put too many. The narrative will be we don't want to put too many of his players there in case they get unsettled when he moves, and it gives the new manager an opportunity to put their own stamp on the squad when they come in next summer. And then you end up in a situation where very little of that money gets spent, and they've actually got the perfect narrative, Russell, to kind of cover that off with, if that's the way it plays out. And I wouldn't surprise me if we get to like the AGM this year or further along the lines, once it becomes common knowledge that Rodgers isn't hanging around next season, that the board turn around and say, well, that's why we kept the money back. You'll see it next summer. Make sure you get those renewals. Make sure you get that new Adidas merchandise that we're going to be launching, because all that money's getting put towards whoever comes in next season. And I just don't know if that's fair or if I'm being cynical. What do you reckon? Do you think the board could potentially have that as a sort of ace in their sleeve if you're looking at it from their point of view as to why they wouldn't want to spend too much money?
Well, I think when you look at it right now, you said initially, and I'm in agreement that, Rodgers is a headache to the board, right, in terms of he's got a drive and he's got an ambition, he's got a vision for what he thinks Celtic are capable of, and what they would require to do to get close to that vision, and they don't like that. They've got their vision of Celtic in place right now. That is their vision of a successful Celtic, is literally what we get right now. And if he was such a headache, then by God, if you think they've just played one ace, they've dodged the bullet in all windows bar one of his tenure. It will be, if it pans out this summer with the ace in the pack that you're saying, that they'll say, well, he was going, so we didn't run to sign Brendan Rodgers players when he was refusing a new deal. But that would mean his first summer, well, we already had a list of targets that were agreed, and Brendan was happy to go with them. So, they knew then, you're not going to upset the apple cart the first summer window, are you, son? So there's our 9 players. Roll with them. Mm-hmm. Then that January, he got the third choice striker from Norwich on loan on the last day, and he got Nicholas Kuhn, who wasn't able to contribute in the first team properly. Did he lose a player? I'm trying to think. Can't remember. Anyway, we then get to last summer, the window where, if you want to argue he got his way and was the headache, we see 9 million spent on Ida. The board gave himself that headache because he was a player that could have been in the door for, we reckon, £5 to £6 million at the end of the season. He's a player that I think the board probably put to Rodgers to get on loan, and a player the board weren't willing to shell out 5-6 million, then had to save face and pay 9. So if that's their own headache that doing, but Brendan was adamant because of the contribution Ida had made, he wanted him. They'll style that out that was Brendan mismanaging money and spending too much of it in terms of, Ida's goal contribution. In years to come, they'll retrospectively do some interview with Lobel one saying, we never wanted to spend things like 9 million on Adam Ida who wasn't worth that, blah, blah, blah. Well, he wasn't. He was worth the 5-6 million like you could have paid. But then
Engels as well, 11.
The Engels is 11, and I think that's, look how late they stalled, they hummed, they hawed. He wouldn't have been in time for the Champions League qualifiers had we had them last year. And for me, that's the window where 6 million on Trusty, that's the window they didn't want. We then got to January just there, and they went back to form. They sold an asset for optimum value. I've got no issue with that, but they just didn't replace him. And then this window, of course, they have that smoking gun of Brendan wasn't signing a new deal. We couldn't invest in him. So you got players. There's no way there's anything like Yamada and the other lad is Brett Rodgers anything to do with, I don't think. And I do feel that he is such hard work that we'll look back in these 3 years and go, one window out of 6, the board would have probably had to go against their own grain. And, after that summer window, I dare say last 24, the Champions League will be the furthest we've got to in the Champions League in over a decade, and the furthest we will for another decade when it returns to type. So you can say what you want about that summer. But yeah, of course, they've got their ducks in a row when it comes to the excuses, Jonathan. And I think just when you look back at it over that, this isn't the first excuse that they've used already to not back him properly, and it won't be the last, because we've still got January to go. And of course, they'll just intensify the he wasn't staying party, and because he never managed to get us in the Champions League, but to sell an asset in January and this sort of push to balance the books. That's depressing.
Do you think they'll announce Brendan's departure ahead of time?
Yes.
How early?
In my opinion, I think they would do it with around 3 games to come, no matter whether the league race is still on or not.
Also, you think they'd announce it even if it was neck and neck?
I think they'll do it anyway.
Yeah, it's a hard one. I think they'll announce it early as well to try.
Why?
Because they'll be looking to get the narratives in. It goes back to what my gut feeling is that if this season, I think we'll end up closer than last. I think Rangers will be better than they were last season. And they were actually good against us in the head-to-heads. What let them down last season was the fact they couldn't take care of business against the other teams, so we could have been a bit of baller last season. Certainly would have been a lot closer race anyway. I think if they can sort that side of their game out across the city, then we'll be back to more a similar run-in to what we had in Brendan's first season, where it could very well be neck and neck and not a lot in it, going right down to the wire. I think Brendan will also want it announced early if that is what he's wanting to do. I think he would rather the fans knew ahead of time rather than him, getting to the last game and then just kind of dropping the mic and exiting. I think he's somebody that would rather make sure that everybody is aware that this time when he leaves, he's doing it at the right time and for the right reasons to keep the fans happy in terms of that.
He gets to test the theory as well that there's a way and there isn't a way to leave Celtic, which I find does sort of pivot slightly and swivel depending on the situ. I don't think breakups are ever easy, Jonathan. There's no good way to break up, and I think you're absolutely right though. From his point of view, he could test the theory. Go, well, I was getting told last time was if I'd given you notice that I was going, but I waited to the end of the season, it was cool. I'm doing that this time, and still I'm ditching you if that were to be how it was perceived. I think from the board's point of view as well, if they announced it earlier, it nips in the bud any chance of an extension happening. Whilst it's all behind closed doors, there's still a chance of Desmond stepping in. Of course, there is still a chance of him doing that, even if they did announce it, but I think it does slim. If it's out in the open, I think that would be very hard for him to
How
even pull
much do
that
we
back
reckon
down.
Dermot Desmond will push it this time around? Because I think Dermot Desmond's probably been the main reason that he's back in a lot of ways, certainly from boardroom level. In terms of making that to go happen, I think Dermot Desmond's probably had a lot to do with that, in terms of winning certain people around that are in that board. Because I think there certainly seems to be, from the outside looking in, one manager that just wants to do one thing with Brendan Rodgers, and he's got the board that are doing something totally different, and the strategies just don't seem to be aligned. And what the glue is that's holding that together is Dermot Desmond. And for me, with he's almost having to be the middleman. I think because of the fact that Rodgers has had the success again this time around, Dermot Desmond's probably not going to be as interested, because I'll give you another one. I think Dermot Desmond is more of a reactive type of majority shareholder that'll wait until things are looking, holy shit, this is all exploded, I need to step in and do something. Whereas if things are kind of going rosy in the garden, he might look at that and think, well, we've been successful, let's just say we do finish next season with another league title and potentially pick up one of the cups, and he ends up with another cup double. I think Desmond's look at that and think, well, it's been steady the last few years, another cup double. If Rodgers chooses to go, he's got that team all kind of set up. There's a team of winners there. Somebody else can pick up that mantle and run with it. Because Dermot Desmond, for me, probably doesn't get as overly involved in watching the football side of it that much. He probably just looks at it from financials and how they're doing on the pitch, just purely in terms of results. I think the rest of it is not really something he gets overly analytical about, which makes me then think, if we get to a place where Brendan is going to be leaving, I don't think Dermot Desmond would step in unless, and I'll caveat this, that the only way Dermot Desmond potentially would step in is we have a really poor season, Rangers win the league, Rodgers still walks, by the way, but then Dermot Desmond feels he needs to insert himself into finding his replacement, because that's what Dermot Desmond does. He comes in when there's usually a massive problem. He waits until there's a fucking metaphorical fire at Celtic Park, and then that's when he comes with his fire engine to put it out. But it'll be interesting to see how involved he will be in the next stage of recruitment. I don't think he will be.
I mean, I take that on board with Dermot as well. I just don't have I get the feeling that he employs people to make football decisions for him. I'm convinced that the people that are employed to make the football decisions are the right ones right now. Not necessarily. I think he's stayed far too loyal to them, and change is always needed as well to continue to evolve. But we've not seen any of that, upstairs whatsoever. They've played musical chairs and changed the job title with Lawwell and all that bollocks that we've covered a million times. But nah, it doesn't convince me that aspect of it would be shaken up, and therefore you're right, if Dermot would only step in if needed. But how long's his shortlist, Jonathan? I think he'd be running out of names now. No disrespect to him, but I think Roy Keane's in his mid-50s now. Martin O'Neill's in his late 60s, Strachan late 60s. In fact, O'Neill's in his 70s, Strachan late 60s. I'm not convinced Dermot Desmond has a massive list of other names that he would have, to pick from. He'd probably phone Brendan. He'd probably phone Brendan and go, bastard, I forgot you've just left. It's not the name I had. Shit, is that you, Brendan? I just left 2 minutes ago. Fuck. Just going down the list. No.
What about Neil Lennon?
Oh, fuck. Hi, Lenny.
The redemption angle.
If he wins that bloody league with Dunfermline by 20 points, don't rule anything out, mate. Don't rule anything out.
We'll just put you in for pre-season, Neil. We'll get a full ball replacement in. Oh, he's just being Sporting Lisbon. Oh, Lenny, 3-year deal.
I mean, his name would be mentioned. His name would be mentioned. No two ways in my mind. He would be discussed.
Yeah, there's no danger. No danger.
I don't know. I think they would. Someone would say his name, and someone would be like, If you smash it, Dunfermline, for example, see wins that league by 20 points, definitely they would suggest him. They'd put his name in the hat. I'm not saying they would go for him, but I definitely think that is how small their list is. I definitely think his name would come up. Or I mean, the dream, of course. They're still looking as Brendan wins the league by 15, 20 points again this season, and they can, all swimming. Don't worry. He's been there twice now with Brendan. It's John Kennedy. I could see it.
Oh, no.
If we had a cushy season this year, won a treble, for example, definitely could see it being Kennedy next year. I would like to know folks' thoughts on that. CJ says Bruni will be getting talked about too. Again, if Bruni were to do one of those seasons where he has air firing CJ and he gets them, he wins the championship with them, I think he would need to win it. Say he did. No two ways he'd be spoke about as well. But yeah, I think the dream was always Kennedy. And the stars haven't aligned for it, with Brendan's departure being in such a abrupt manner, and with it so much riding on it still at that point, you had to get Lenny, of course. Let's not forget how good he was, by the way, in that that first 18 months in his second spell at Celtic. Absolutely brilliant.
It's always an interesting one. What would have happened with him if COVID didn't hit? That history would have been very different, I think. If COVID
he'd completed the treble that Brendan had sort of, they say, teed up, but I mean, he had some tricky Scottish Cup ties in that. The week gap was 8 points. Two derbies to go, was there?
Yes.
2 derbies to go, 8 points, and now taking over when everyone's in a state of shock that Brendan's left. All he could do was lose. For winning, he didn't get much credit. Then the next year, he gets Celtic's record tally in a group stage in European football. They're only ever first place. Home and away win over Lazio. Then a treble included. He was on course at that point to maybe eclipse what he'd done first time. So it is interesting with that, but we'll never know. We will never know. Ian McIntosh, love that. I don't think fans would have it, but I would. Imagine big Roberto Martinez coming in.
That would be good. I would enjoy that as well.
That'd be good. And it'd be
an English lesson for Martinez.
It'd be an English lesson as well every time, because he speaks better English than, any of my pals anyway, and me included. He speaks proper.
Interesting one with Sean Maloney, because I could potentially see him like assistant manager's gig with somebody. Probably not Martinez. I know they've worked together before, but Maloney's one of those guys, comes across very well. I'm not sure he's got the abilities to be the actual head man, but having a wee role as one of the having a role like where it's similar sort of level to John Kennedy, wouldn't surprise me if that did fall into Sean Maloney's remit somewhere along the way in his career.
I struggle to see why Maloney's came just for that role, or without, again, think of the conversation we've just had. Jinx Celtic people don't have these convos. Rodgers is probably away in a year. There's going to be vacancies, Smash it here for the first year in that role, and, you'll get a promotion, i.e. to first team coach or, heaven forbid, manager, but I doubt that. But, first team coach or one of the assistants or set, what I mean? Involved in the first team environment. Of course, that conversation will happen as well. They're only human, mate. It's not like it's only us who speculate on these things. Of course, they all do talk and go, look, could be upheaval here. So if there's spaces and you do well in your first year, it could be a better job title you've got within 12 months, Sean, at Celtic. That's like anyone following a career in life. You know what I mean? You look to hear these things, don't you? I'm seeing reports it's 2-0. Mine must be way behind. It stopped starting a wee bit, to be honest with you.
Your eyesight can't see it too.
In the comments it says 2-0, so that's good. I'm just waiting to see if I'm going to see the goal. Oh, a wee pinch in midfield. I think I'm about 5 minutes behind. No, McKeown, foul given. Fucking hell, I'll maybe see the second goal at Christmas or something.
What's a live watch? How long is this?
I know, mate. I know. What else do you want to talk about before we go? Anything else?
I'm not really sure. It was interesting you brought Roy Keane up. I was like, Roy Keane's an interesting name.
No,
Well, you
I
put
was
him up when you were talking about Dermot Desmond and Roy Keane and everything else that he would always look at him. I'm like, Roy Keane's time I would imagine, have passed. But again, I think Roy Keane, once upon a time, could have potentially worked
yeah, of
at
course you
Celtic.
are. So do I, definitely. I mean, I think now it would just be ridiculous.
It'd be too late.
We're 5 years further into the woke generation now, Jonathan. They won't understand, and they're all smart. The wokes, the woke generation, are all smart asses as well, which really does me nothing. So look at someone like Roy Keane with fucking medals falling in his pocket. You know what I mean? As he walks up Celtic way and think he's not intelligent enough in the football realm to be Celtic boss in 2025 or something like that. Because they've got all the Opta stats and he doesn't believe in stats and all that sort of shit. But it'd be a lovely dream. I mean, I'd love to see him in the old tie.
There's still a part of you that quite like Roy Keane to get that job at.
No, I'd fucking love it. I mean, that first photo, I'd be going fucking mental. Right, we'll call it there. That's nearly been an hour. We'll get you back next week. We'll do Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. As I say, there's no stresses. Tomorrow night, we will be joined, of course, on a Thursday by the judge, Mark Kearney. Looking forward to that, as always. Everyone else, enjoy the rest of the game. Hope your stream's better than mine. And thanks,
everyone. You seen that goal yet?
No, it's now 2-0, Jonathan. I didn't even see the goal. I changed the Celtic stream, went back to this one, and got caught up, and it's caught up right to real time. So that was a great idea. Right, okay. We are out of here. Thanks again, Jonathan. And yes, we will see you all later. Nice one.